Cloudcast Media. Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media. We are pleased to have in the studio with us today Dawn Hall Cunneen. She is the president of the North County Bar Association and a partner in Cunneen Booth Law Firm. How you doing there, Dawn?
Great.
Thanks for coming in. So, always wanted to be a lawyer since you were a little kid, or the epiphany happened in high school or college, or when?
It actually happened when I was about 9 years old.
I love it.
And I started reading Perry Mason books while other little girls were reading Little House on the Prairie.
Beautiful.
And then I discovered Perry Mason had a television show, and I got hooked on that. And so I just loved watching Perry Mason, as geeky as that sounds. That's how it started.
Well, let me join you in the geeky club, because Perry Mason was just an iconic show back in the day. And then actually, a buddy of mine, I found this out later, my college roommate, watched it all the time, and he nicknamed one of his best friends Burger for the Defense. Okay, and you remember that, of course, as part of the show, correct?
That's right.
Right. Now people have to go back to Nickelodeon and have to go to some of these shows, and then you have to go ahead and Google that. So did you come from a family of lawyers?
No, I didn't. I came from a family of business owners. So They owned restaurants and a catering company. So to this day, I can't cook, but I know how to set up the flow of a room.
That is very, very important. And what type of law do you practice?
Trust and estates. So we do estate planning for high net worth individuals, post-death administration. And then over half of our business is trust and estates litigation, when family members, unfortunately, are suing one another. Yeah,
and we'll certainly talk a little bit about that. It's so important to get that squared away. Don't wait until it's too late, and you're never too young, to some extent, to set this stuff up.
That's for
trust
sure.
are so critical. Talk about the importance of bar associations. You're the president of the North County Bar Association, and why are bar associations so valuable?
Bar associations, I think, are just invaluable, to be honest, because as you can imagine, the legal profession may not be the most friendly profession, and bar associations bring lawyers together in a collegiate way. And so when you know another attorney, you're less likely to be as obstreperous or as difficult, because you can pick up the phone, call them, and say, hey, how do we help our clients resolve this issue, rather than posturing and beating the chest and threatening.
Right, exactly. And, I think that's such a great point on this. I come from the field of journalism. That's where I got my degree. We all know where journalists are in this day and age in likability. I think we're below, I don't think anything's below Congress these days, to be honest with you. But lawyers, people who don't understand the value of a good lawyer, and the overwhelming majority of lawyers do good work, good, honest work. That's an understatement. That's great that the Bar Association does this. Now, do you work with other associations? I know the San Diego has a bar association too, correct?
We do, and we just had our May Fair, which is an inaugural event that has just really caught on. And so what we do at our May Fair is we invite other bar associations from specialty bars, the LGBTQ plus bar, the San Diego County Bar, the Native American Bar, the Pan-Asian Bar. We have bar associations that represent all specialty areas of practice, and they all come together for a fair. They set up booths and give people information about their particular area.
Right. talk about this before we get into the services to the public in that aspect, and they definitely want to get into your new topics and protecting the court's budget. That some looming budget cuts that are going to be coming from the state budget and that aspect of it. But just talk about how important it is for people to reach out to lawyers, and be honest with what you need from a lawyer. I learned this a long time ago. A lot of my friends are lawyers and say, listen, we can't help, represent you, whatever it may be, especially if we don't know what you are looking for.
Right.
Don't hold stuff back, correct?
Absolutely. We always tell our clients, give us all your thoughts, all your information, and we can sort out quickly what's important and what's not. And I think people are afraid to do that because of the hourly rate. They're afraid that it's going to cost a lot for us to go through all of their information or hear their stories. And that's not true, because once we've been practicing for a long time, I can very quickly go through information because I know exactly what I'm looking for.
Right.
And things that people think aren't important might be one of the most important things that we need.
Well, that's why you guys do this. The courts, what precedents are in this aspect, what have they held in previous court cases and so forth. Sounds, very obvious in this. And I think that, and I've had a bunch of lawyers on the show in various aspects of it, and everyone to a T just says, we're not going to be insulted if we're not the right one for you, and you meet with us and you decide to go somewhere else. Talk about how important that is, having that anonymous conversation.
Oh, it's so important, because you're going to be working with your lawyer on probably one of the most stressful things that you've ever gone through in your life.
That's right.
People don't come to us with happy, good news. They come to us with stress and problems. And so the match has to be right. And I have turned down clients with over $1 billion net worth because the match wasn't right. And
Right.
I knew every time the phone rang, my stomach would hurt. I don't want to practice that kind of law.
Right.
And we have more than enough work. There's more than enough work for good lawyers. So the lawyers also are vetting the clients. And if you go to a good lawyer, they'll be honest with you from the beginning and say, hey, I don't think you're a right fit for our firm, but here's another firm that I think you might do well with. And just because you're not a good match doesn't mean there's anything wrong with either person. It's just not a good match.
Yeah. So talk a little about, do bar associations sort of get it involved with sort of a good housekeeping rule that, and listen, if there's somebody that's in the association that, quite honestly, we have questionable journalists as well as their questionable lawyers, their questionable doctors and all that. But if somebody is not doing the oath they take to be a lawyer, do you guys work to, correct their behavior, get rid of them from the association? Do you get into those aspects?
So local bar associations do not do that.
Right.
The California
Right.
bar does.
Right.
But California recently passed what is not so affectionately referred to as the attorney snitch rule.
Okay.
Which means that if we are aware that an attorney is compromised, that we now have an affirmative duty to report that to the state bar.
Right.
So that has created some complications, right? Because no one wants to be a snitch.
Right.
But we do have that duty, and we can be disciplined for not reporting.
Well, and I think, with anything, and the same, again, whatever the profession is, there are going to be some cases where things just probably not done the way it should be done. And I think it makes the general public feel good that, okay, I'm working with lawyers as part of this association. They only work with great lawyers, or hopefully good lawyers, and know that I'm going to be in pretty good hands with it. I bet that's pretty important for you folks as an association, is it not?
It is. And we have an affiliated branch called Lawyer Referral Service that the general public can call and say, hey, here's my legal problem. Can you refer me to an attorney who is competent in this area? And so that's a very valuable service we offer.
Yeah, without question. We're chatting with Dawn Hall Cunneen. She is the president of the North County Bar Association, also a partner in Cunneen Booth Law Firm. I'm Drew Schlosberg. As you're listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, we are the nation's longest running community podcast, now in our 18th year, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, broadcasting from the Mission Fed studios in Scripps Ranch, and Mission Fed for more than 6 decades, doing great things for San Diegans. for just in so many different areas. It could be literacy, it could be in health, it could be in food insecurity. Just do a great job. So talk about some of the services you folks offer to the public.
So we offer pro bono services on Law Day every year. We serve over 100 people. We have a walk-in clinic with a variety of lawyers there who specialize in different areas of the law, so people can come in with their legal issue and get guidance on what direction to go.
Right.
And then we also try to serve the children in North County, and that's a real passion of mine as president. And we've had for years the Youth in Court and On My Honor program, where we bus in hundreds of students from local elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools, and let them come to court. And they come to the courthouse. They put on a mock jury trial with a real judge in a real courtroom. And then we have other presentations by the DA's office and other legal groups for the high school students on bullying, sexual violence, and dating. Very relevant topics unfortunately, relevant topics to, many children today. And I feel very passionately that our education system is failing our students. We have cut civics out of the classroom for many areas, and people aren't even learning about the rule of law and why that's important and why chaos isn't helpful in society. They're not learning about our institutions and how they work and help our society. So I feel very passionately in keeping these programs going. And they stopped for a while during COVID, but this year we got it back up and running. And we're very excited to make this an annual event again.
Yeah, it's funny you bring up civics. I was honored to serve on the AVID board for many years, and one of my colleagues is the superintendent for the Sacramento County Schools. And he is was part, this has been a while ago, co-chair of a state task force with Judith McConnell down here. I think she was a Superior Court judge, if I'm not mistaken. And they took the lead on bringing civics back to the classroom. I'm not sure if that program is still going on. Because you're so spot on this. We know there's enough noise out in the airwaves these days talking about, why is this Justice Department so important? Well, it's the rule of law, and that's how our country was founded. Are you kidding me? And I think that is just so critical to do that. Are you seeing any inroads on that? Do you work with the school districts on this?
No, we work with the schools to the extent of arranging for the children to come to the courthouse and experience that, but that's the extent of it. And one of the things we learned through this process, too, is that we created scripts for the mock trials that they would be doing. And we have students in high school or junior high that aren't reading at the 3rd and 5th grade level. Yeah. So we had to modify the scripts because they literally could not read them. And so now I'm trying to figure out a way for the Bar Association to work with schools on reading. Yeah. And that's going to be our next project, because if you can't read, you're going to be so disadvantaged in all of life, no matter what you do. And again, I know I sound like a broken record, but our school systems are failing our students. Yeah. And we need to do something about that rather than just live in an illiterate society. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a school advocate, and so schools are far from perfect. And there are certain areas we can do a lot better. There's no question about it. And, I'm a past president of the Greater San Diego Reading Association. So
wonderful.
Yes. So my passion is with literacy, and the former owner and publisher of the Union Tribune, Mrs. Helen Copley, founded the San Diego Council on Literacy, who is a frequent guest on the show. So trust me, we work as hard as we can on these things, and a lot of it, is not as easy as it sounds, to be honest with you. But there's no question, reading is the lifeblood of you. You can be the greatest STEM person in the world. If you can't read, it's not going to go too much further, or whatever the case may be. So that's interesting that you guys are going to take that on. We come back from break. I want to talk a little bit about the importance of protecting your court's budget, and if you have maybe some budget cuts, you can explain what that is. And we always save some time at the second half, Dawn, of our interview. What can our listeners do to support what you're doing? Either in your profession, in your law firm, or more importantly, maybe with the Bar Association.
Wonderful.
How's that sound?
Sounds great. Thank you.
We're going to be right back with Dawn Hall Cunneen. She is the president in North County Bar Association, a partner in the Cunneen Booth Law Firm. I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media. Listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show. We will be right back.
When you do your banking with Mission Fed, you get great rates on auto and home loans. That's good for you, but something good also happens for a lot of other people. We're not for profit, so we put money back into the community to help lots of great nonprofits to keep San Diego strong. So you're not just getting something good, you're doing something good. Come to Mission Fed. It's banking that's good for all.
Brand amplification is the DNA of Cloudcast Media, and our code is the powerful blending of sound, voice, and storytelling to lift local brands and their communities. Whether it is our Brandcast, Schoolcast, or Causecast platforms, the unifying ethos is all about this community, the one you call home. If you dare to dream and want to explore the brand amplification of Cloudcast, a national leader in local podcasting and other Winfluence strategies, please visit us at cloudcast.us.
I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media. You're listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, the nation's longest-running community podcast. We're now in our 18th year, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union for more than 60 years, just doing great work for so many different people in San Diego County. Honored to have Dawn Hall Cunneen in the studio with us today. She is the president of the North County Bar Association and a partner in the Cunneen Booth Law Firm. I do want to ask you about trust and all that business because that is so important to talk about. That's your specialty in the law firm. But talk a little bit about this Governor Newsom's proposed budget cuts for the court system that, in your opinion, could be quite devastating.
Absolutely. So prior to 2019, Governor Newsom had implemented significant budget cuts in the court system. And one of the things we had lost was court reporters. So court reporters take down every word that's spoken in a courtroom, and now we don't have that anymore. So when you have a record, there's no record for appeal. There's no proof of what was said in the courtroom. So then in 2019, they provided more funding and hired more judges because we had empty courtrooms with no judges in them and people waiting years for their matters to be heard. And so then in 2019, we got a little bit of a teaser funding, got 25 new judges, and now the proposal is to cut $97 million from the court's budget. And people say to me, well, why do I care about that? That's just for the lawyers. No, it's not. None of that $97 million was ever going to go to lawyers. It was all going to the public court system. So if you have a lawsuit in San Diego County, you're probably going to wait at least 2 years before you get to trial. And along the way, you're going to have to pay for your own court reporter to be in the courtroom because the courts no longer provide them in most civil courtrooms. They're in criminal, they do because it's required. But you're going to have to pay for that. You're going to have to pay court filing fees that are higher than ever, $500 to file something. You're going to have to pay for all these things that the budget has removed. And while you're waiting years for your matter to come to trial, there are empty courtrooms because there's no funding for the judges, for the bailiffs, for the clerks. So this proposed budget cut is devastating because it's on top of historic budget cuts already. So I don't know what they're going to possibly cut. Are they going to turn off the lights? Are we all going to be sitting there in the dark? They've already cut so much. I have no idea what they can still cut and keep the system running. In LA, we're looking at probably 3 years to get to trial. And people think, oh, well, that's not bad. Well, if you're the litigant, it's bad because you're paying for all those years. And when the hearing dates are so far spread out, you're paying your lawyer to redo so much of the work because your lawyer doesn't remember what happened 9 months ago. They have to go back into your file and look at it again, and they have to charge you for that. where if the hearing dates are more compressed, there's some institutional memory and you can quickly get up to speed. And also in litigation in our area, it's family members suing each other. So when they go to court, I can't tell you how many clients I've been in the bathroom with that are throwing up. They're that upset. So now that whole distressing process, and to the point where they're having a physical reaction, is drug out for years instead of compressed into a shorter period of time. It's devastating. It's absolutely devastating.
So how does are you marshaling the troops? How does one get to the governor, okay, and say, this is what's going to happen? I'm sure hopefully he's aware of it, and make a change in course.
Well, I think, the old, everybody contact your congressman. Makes a difference. Write letters. The bar associations are writing letters. The organizations are writing letters. So, that's, I think, all we can do is contact our elected officials and make our wishes known. But so much of this is buried. And that's why I'm so glad you're hosting this podcast, because I wouldn't know about this but for the alerts that I subscribe to and pay to get. Yeah. So this is buried and people don't know it's happening. So I think one of the biggest things we can do is get the word out that this is happening, because you want to, if you ever need access to the legal system, you want to have quick access, not delayed access that's way more expensive than it should be.
Yeah, well, first of all, that's very surprising to me, and I think I keep up on the news, but obviously not this type of news. The court reporter, I had no idea about, at least in the civil cases in this area. And you're so spot on this, that if you think about it, especially when it comes into the world where you're dealing with trusts and all that business, then you actually go to court. You want these things resolved. I mean, that sounds obvious, but and how many people now, because of this delay, are just so discouraged to even bring any type of, court issue?
I see that with our clients, because we're very upfront with our clients. We describe the process, because we tell them, if you think you're signing up for a 5K, you're not. You're signing up for a marathon. And so you have to be in shape for this. You have to have the temperament, you have to have the money, and you have to have the patience. And so we set expectations from the beginning. And we do have clients who just say, you know what, with this projected cost, now that I'm picking up what the cost the court and the public used to pay for, in addition to the attorneys, and knowing that will take 2 or 3 years out of my life, they can keep their money that was stolen from me.
Yeah.
It's not worth it.
Right. So, and I'm going to be the biggest advocate for this. So just talk about how important it is to talk as a family early on in the situation about trust.
It's just critical, because we all are born with an eternal perspective, I think. We think we're invincible. We think we're going to last forever. We don't visualize our life ending, because if we did, we would be depressed people, right? So we're wired to want to live. And so we don't think about dying. We don't like to think about dying. But I can tell you, in my career of over 30 years, I've had gentlemen in their 30s who were surfers go to the beach, get a cut, be dead 2 days later from a septic infection. And that's happened twice, just in my practice. Mm-hmm. And then I've had titans of industry, names that everyone would recognize, who think they're invincible, and everyone around them believes they're invincible. And one died on an airplane. We have no idea when we're going to die, right, is the point. And so a death is traumatic for a family. But if you introduce chaos, because there's no pre-planning, into trauma, now you have the worst experience you could possibly have. So I always view estate planning as really a gift you give to your family.
100%.
And taking care of your family.
100%. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. But, on this, we had a trust, and my mom was on top of her game many, many moons ago. So when she passed away at 95 years young, it was all squared away, and that I have this for my family as well. And it's the right thing to do. And I've talked to many lawyers that are in this space you are in, and it's interesting how people just don't want to talk about this because they don't want to talk about death. I said, but you're doing it for your kids. If nothing else, you're setting it up so there's no confusion of what needs to be done. You don't want to go to probate, for God.
No.
Yeah, and you'll find out if you haven't done it why you shouldn't have done this aspect of it. So I cannot encourage people enough. I know that's a separate topic you and I can talk about forever on the trust. How do they get a hold of you just on the trust aspect in your law firm? What's the best way?
Sure. The best way is to just call me, 760-421-9689.
Yeah.
And we can chat about their needs. And a free piece of legal advice for everyone. Sometimes we see people who go to the trouble of creating a trust, but then they don't actually transfer title to the assets to the trust. So then the trust doesn't work. So if you have a trust, look at how you've titled your assets and make sure they're titled in your name as trustee of the trust.
Yeah, I tell people whatever the charge is, depending on the lawyer you're working with, $2,000, $2,500. It depends on what you're getting and all that business. But could be less, could be more. Best investment you are ever going to do for 17,000 different reasons. And if nothing else, the peace of mind that you've taken care of your family, okay, and made no question about this is what's going to happen. So I think that's great. Before we end the podcast, any final comments?
No, thank you for having me here today. I think it's just so important that we get information out to the public, particularly about the proposed budget cuts to the court, and would welcome the public's assistance in keeping our court systems up and running by contacting their representatives.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point on this as well. It's been a pleasure chatting with you, Dawn. I'm sure somewhere down the road we'll continue this conversation with maybe focus on trust somewhere. Can't talk about that enough as well. Dawn Hall Cunneen, president of North County Bar Association and a partner in Cunneen Booth Law Firm. I'm Drew Schlosberg, and you've been listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg's Spotlight on the Community Show. We are the nation's longest running podcast, now in our 18th year, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union for 6 decades, doing great things for people living in San Diego County. We hope you enjoyed the show.
You've been listening to an episode of Drew Schlosberg's Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego community. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
Cloudcast Media.